The text message notification lit up Vanessa's phone at 11:47 p.m., and her giggle cut through our bedroom like a rusty knife. I'd been pretending to sleep for 20 minutes, listening to her fingers dance across the screen in the darkness. "Just work stuff," she whispered when she caught me watching. But work stuff doesn't make a 40-year-old marketing executive giggle like a teenager at midnight. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Ethan Ford, and I'm what you'd call a recovering nice guy. 43 years old, former accountant turned handyman after the firm downsized me 3 years back. I fix things for a living now. Broken faucets, squeaky hinges, rotted deck boards. Turns out I'm pretty good at it. What I apparently suck at is keeping my wife happy. Vanessa Ford, née Harrison, works for Coastal Marketing Solutions in downtown Millbrook, Maine. She's the kind of woman who wears power suits to the grocery store and treats every conversation like a negotiation. When we met 15 years ago, I thought her ambition was attractive. Now it just feels sharp, like sleeping next to a collection of kitchen knives. "Who's texting you this late?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Derek. He's got some ideas for the Morrison account." She set the phone face down on her nightstand, but not before I caught a glimpse of the contact name. The little heart emoji next to Derek was new. Derek Harlan, her boss. 42, divorced, drives a BMW convertible that costs more than most people make in a year. I've met him twice at company parties. The kind of guy who shakes your hand too hard and calls everyone buddy, while mentally calculating how much your watch cost. "Must be some account," I said. Vanessa rolled over, giving me her back. "You wouldn't understand. It's complicated." "Right. Too complicated for the guy who used to balance books for a living." I lay there listening to her breathe, watching the green glow of her phone pulse with incoming messages. Each buzz felt like a small betrayal. The next morning, Vanessa was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Early meeting. Don't wait up tonight. V, don't wait up tonight. On a Tuesday." I made coffee in our ancient Mr. Coffee machine, the one Vanessa kept threatening to replace with some fancy espresso contraption, and considered my options. I could confront her directly, but Vanessa was a professional liar. She got paid to make things sound better than they were. I could ignore it and hope I was wrong, but my gut had been churning for weeks. Or I could do what any reasonable person in the 21st century would do. I could investigate. The tracking app was easier to install than I'd expected. Vanessa had left her phone charging in the bathroom while she showered, and it only took 30 seconds to download and activate the software. The GPS tracker for her car was trickier. I had to wait until she left for work, then crawl under her Honda Civic in our driveway while Mrs. Carmody watched from her kitchen window next door. Eleanor Carmody was 73 years old and had been monitoring neighborhood activities since the Carter administration. She waved at me from behind her curtains, probably wondering why I was playing mechanic at 7 in the morning. "Just checking something," I called out, which was technically true. By noon, I was watching Vanessa's location on my phone screen. She wasn't at her office. According to the GPS, she was at the Seaside Grand Hotel, about 15 minutes outside town, the same hotel where Derek Harlan had hosted the company retreat last summer. I grabbed my keys. The Seaside Grand was the kind of place that charged $30 for a hamburger and acted like they were doing you a favor. I parked across the street and waited. At 12:47 p.m., Vanessa emerged from the main entrance, followed closely by Derek. They weren't holding hands, but there was something intimate about the way they moved together, like they were sharing a secret. Derek said something that made Vanessa laugh, the same laugh I'd heard the night before. Then he leaned in and kissed her, not a friendly peck on the cheek, a full, lingering kiss that made my chest feel like someone had reached in and squeezed my heart with a wrench. I sat in my truck and watched my marriage die in a hotel parking lot. They separated after a few minutes. Derek headed for his BMW while Vanessa walked toward her Honda. I ducked down as she drove past, then followed Derek at a distance. He went back to the office building where Coastal Marketing had their headquarters, just another day at work. That evening, Vanessa came home at 9:30 p.m. with takeout Chinese food and an elaborate story about client dinners and budget meetings. She was a good liar. I had to give her that. She looked me right in the eye and spun her tale with the confidence of someone who'd had hours to practice. "You look tired," she said, unpacking lo mein and sweet and sour chicken. "Everything okay?" "Just a long day," I replied. "Fixed the Hendersons' garbage disposal. Took longer than expected." We ate dinner like a normal couple. We talked about her work, my work, the weather, the neighbor's new fence. Vanessa was animated, almost cheerful. Adultery apparently agreed with her. After she went to bed, I sat in my basement workshop and planned my next move. The workshop was my sanctuary, a converted storage room filled with tools, spare parts, and half-finished projects. Vanessa never came down here. She said it smelled like sawdust and WD-40, which it did. I'd always been good with details. It's what made me a decent accountant and a better handyman. You learn to see the small things that other people miss. The loose screw that's about to fail, the wire that's not quite right, the story that doesn't add up. Vanessa's story definitely didn't add up. I spent the next 3 days gathering evidence. The tracking apps showed a pattern. Lunch meetings at the Seaside Grand every Tuesday and Thursday, plus a 2-hour conference call every Friday afternoon that actually took place in the hotel parking lot. But I needed more than GPS coordinates. On Thursday night, while Vanessa was in the shower, I copied her laptop's hard drive to an external drive I'd bought specifically for this purpose. It took 40 minutes, the longest shower in recorded history, apparently, but I managed to clone everything before she finished. What I found made my stomach turn. Emails. Hundreds of them, dating back 4 months. Derek was surprisingly articulate for a sleazeball, and Vanessa was surprisingly creative for someone I'd thought I knew. They'd been planning weekend getaways, sharing fantasies, and discussing their future together. A future that apparently didn't include me. The worst part wasn't the conversation about relationships, though that stung like hell. It was the casual way they discussed me, like I was a problem to be managed rather than a person with feelings. E is getting suspicious, Vanessa had written 2 weeks earlier. We need to be more careful. Don't worry about your husband, Derek had replied. Guys like him don't fight back. They just take it and move on. Guys like him. I printed everything. 347 pages of betrayal, lies, and casual contempt. Then I organized it chronologically, cross-referenced it with credit card statements I pulled from our joint accounts, and built a timeline that would have impressed my old forensic accounting professors. By Friday morning, I had enough evidence to end my marriage and Derek's career. The question was what to do with it. I could have confronted them immediately, but that felt too easy. Too clean. Derek was right about one thing. Guys like me usually just took it and moved on. We hired lawyers, split assets, and tried to salvage some dignity from the wreckage. But I wasn't feeling particularly dignified. I was feeling creative. Friday evening, Vanessa came home from another conference call, looking flushed and satisfied. She hummed while she made dinner, actually hummed, like she was starring in her own romantic comedy. Good day? I asked. The best, she said, not catching the irony. I think the Morrison Project is really going to take off. The Morrison Project. That's what she was calling it now. I waited until she'd finished eating, then excused myself to get something from the basement. When I came back upstairs, I was carrying a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. What's that? Vanessa asked, but her voice had already changed. She knew. I opened the folder and began laying out printed emails, credit card statements, and hotel receipts on our dining room table. Each page was a small explosion of truth, and I watched Vanessa's face grow paler with every revelation. The Morrison Project, I said conversationally, seems to involve a lot of afternoon meetings at the Seaside Grand. Interesting billing strategy. Vanessa stood frozen by the sink, a dish towel clutched in her hands like a shield. Ethan, I can explain. Oh, I'm sure you can. You're very good at explanations. I pulled out my laptop and connected it to our television. But I thought we might start with a visual presentation. The first email filled the 42-inch screen in high definition. Derek's words looked even more disgusting in Times New Roman font. Can't wait to taste you again. That thing you did with your tongue yesterday. Turn it off, Vanessa whispered. I'm just getting started. I clicked to the next email. This one was from Vanessa. E is working late tonight. Come over around 9. I'll leave the back door unlocked. That had been 3 weeks ago. I'd been fixing the Petersons' deck until midnight, came home exhausted, and found Vanessa already asleep. Or pretending to be asleep. Now I knew she'd been pretending a lot of things. You brought him here? My voice was steady, but something cold was spreading through my chest. Into our house? Vanessa finally found her voice. It's not what you think? It's exactly what I think. It's exactly what everyone's going to think when they see this. I clicked through more emails, each one a small masterpiece of betrayal. Hotel reservations made with our joint credit card. Lingerie purchases from Victoria's Secret. Lingerie I'd never seen. Plans for a weekend in Boston that she'd told me was a work conference. You used our money, I said. Our credit cards to pay for hotel rooms where you stayed with your boss. Vanessa flinched at the profanity. I rarely swore, but the situation seemed to call for it. Ethan, please, we can work this out. It was a mistake. A 4-month mistake? That's quite a commitment to error. I pulled out another stack of papers. These are the financial records. You've spent $6,000 of our money on your affair. Hotel rooms, dinners, gifts for Derek that weekend in Boston. Should I itemize it? She sat down heavily in one of our kitchen chairs. For the first time since I'd known her, Vanessa Harrison Ford looked defeated. What do you want? She asked. I want you to sit down and watch the show. We're just getting to the good part. The next email was from Derek, sent just yesterday. Your husband's a pathetic loser. Can't wait until you're free of him. We'll make a great team, baby, in business and in bed. Vanessa's face went white. He didn't mean... Oh, I think he meant exactly that. I leaned back in my chair, studying my wife like she was a broken appliance I was trying to diagnose. You know what's funny? I actually felt bad about spying on you. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, jealous, insecure. Turns out I wasn't being paranoid enough. I clicked to the final email in the sequence, sent this morning while I was installing new gutters for the Hendersons. This one's my favorite, I said. Derek's 5-year plan. Very thorough, very detailed. Apparently you're going to divorce me, take half of everything, and move in with him. He's already picked out a house. Nice place, according to the real estate listing he attached. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 2-car garage. Perfect for the happy couple. Vanessa was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration, of a plan gone wrong. You don't understand, she said. Derek and I, we're in love. Love. I tasted the word like it was spoiled milk. Is that what you call it when you steal money from your husband to pay for hotel rooms? When you mock him in emails to your boyfriend? When you plan to take half his assets in a divorce while being involved with someone else? It's not like that. It's exactly like that. But here's the thing, Vanessa. I'm not going to make it easy for you. I closed the laptop and began gathering the printed emails. These are copies, obviously. I've got the originals stored in several safe places, along with the financial records, the hotel receipts, the GPS tracking data, and about 40 hours of recorded phone conversations. That last part was a lie, but Vanessa didn't know that. You recorded our conversations? I recorded everything. Every lie, every excuse, every time you told me you were working late while you were actually with your boss. It's all documented. I stood up and headed for the basement door. I'm going to my workshop now. When I come back upstairs, I want you gone. Pack a bag, go to Derek's place, go to your sister's, go to hell for all I care. But don't be here. This is my house, too. Not anymore. I paused at the top of the basement stairs. Oh, and Vanessa, you might want to call Derek. Tell him his wife's divorce attorney is going to find those emails very interesting. Adultery's still grounds for divorce in Maine, and judges tend to frown on affairs between supervisors and subordinates. Something about workplace harassment policies. I left her sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal, and went downstairs to plan Phase 2. The next morning, Vanessa was gone. She'd taken a suitcase, her laptop, and most of her clothes. She'd also left a note on the kitchen counter. We need to talk. This doesn't have to be ugly. Call me. I threw the note away and made coffee. My phone started ringing at 8:30 a.m. Derek Harlan, probably calling from his BMW on the way to damage control. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to his message while I ate breakfast. Ethan, this is Derek. Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Vanessa and I, we're colleagues, nothing more. I think you might have misinterpreted some communications. Why don't we meet for coffee and clear the air? I'm sure we can work this out like adults. Adults. Right. I deleted the message and called my sister Lila in Portland. Ethan, it's early for you to be calling. Vanessa and I are getting divorced. Silence on the other end. Lila had never liked Vanessa, but she'd been polite about it for my sake. I'm sorry, she said finally. Are you okay? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. But I need a favor. Name it. Remember your friend who works in HR at that big marketing firm? The one you went to college with? Sarah Martinez? She works for Pinnacle Marketing in Boston. Why? I need to make a phone call about workplace harassment and ethics violations. Lila was quiet for a moment. What did Vanessa do? She's been sleeping with her boss, using company resources, company time, company credit cards. I've got documentation. Jesus, Ethan, how long? 4 months that I can prove, maybe longer. Send me everything, Lila said. Sarah's going to want to see it all. I spent the morning scanning documents and organizing files. By noon, I'd sent Lila a comprehensive package that would have impressed the IRS. financial records, email transcripts, hotel receipts, GPS tracking data, everything needed to paint a picture of systematic workplace misconduct. Then I drove to the Crooked Anchor. The Anchor was Millbrook's unofficial information exchange, a dive bar where locals went to drink beer and share gossip. Doug Peterson, my old drinking buddy from my accounting days, was already there when I arrived, nursing a Budweiser and watching SportsCenter on the ancient television above the bar. "Ethan," Doug waved me over. "What brings you out on a Saturday afternoon?" Doug was a retired cop, 62 years old, with a kind of permanent sunburn that comes from spending 30 years patrolling Maine's coast. He knew everyone in town and most of their secrets. "Vanessa and I are splitting up," I said, ordering a beer from Mickey, the bartender. "Shit, really? I'm sorry, man. What happened?" "She's been involved with her boss." Doug nearly choked on his beer. "Derek Harlan? That prick in the BMW? You know him?" "Know of him. Pulled him over twice for speeding. Arrogant bastard both times. Acted like the rules didn't apply to him." Doug leaned closer. "You sure about this?" I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the Tamer emails. Doug's eyes widened as he read. "Holy shit, Ethan. This is... wow." 4 months, I said. "Maybe longer. They used our joint credit card to pay for hotel rooms." Word spread through the Anchor like spilled beer. By the time I finished my second drink, half the bar knew about Vanessa's affair. By evening, it would be all over town. Millbrook was the kind of place where secrets had a half-life of about 6 hours. Mrs. Carmody called me at home that night. "Ethan, dear, I heard about you and Vanessa. I'm so sorry." "Thanks, Mrs. Carmody. I appreciate that. If you need anything, a home-cooked meal, someone to talk to, you just let me know. That girl never deserved you." Mrs. Carmody had been saying that for years, but I'd never listened. Now it felt like validation. Sunday morning brought more phone calls. Friends, neighbors, acquaintances. Everyone wanted to express their sympathy and get the details. I gave them the sanitized version. Vanessa had been having an affair. We were getting divorced. I was doing fine. The truth was more complicated. I wasn't fine. I was angry, hurt, and embarrassed. But I was also something else. Focused. For the first time in months, I had a purpose. Monday morning, I called Coastal Marketing Solutions. "I'd like to speak to someone in human resources," I told the receptionist. "May I ask what this is regarding?" "A workplace harassment complaint involving Derek Harlan and Vanessa Ford." 10 minutes later, I was talking to Janet Morrison, the company's HR director. She listened politely while I outlined the situation, then asked me to email her the documentation. "We take these matters very seriously, Mr. Ford. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. What happens now?" "We'll conduct an internal investigation. Both employees will be placed on administrative leave pending the outcome." Administrative leave. That was corporate speak for suspended without pay while we figure out how to fire you without getting sued. I hung up feeling satisfied. Phase 2 was complete. My phone rang an hour later. Vanessa calling from an unknown number. "You bastard," she said without preamble. "You got us both suspended." I reported workplace misconduct to the appropriate authorities. What happens next is up to your company. This is my career, Ethan. My life. Should have thought of that before you started screwing your boss. We're in love. You're in love with his money and his position. He's in love with being involved with a subordinate. Don't confuse that with romance. Vanessa was crying now. "Please, Ethan. Call them back. Tell them you made a mistake." "I don't make mistakes. I'm an accountant, remember? We're very thorough. What do you want? Money? The house? I'll give you whatever you want." "I want you to understand something, Vanessa. For 15 years, I was a good husband. I worked hard, paid the bills, supported your career, and never once cheated on you. I trusted you completely, and you used that trust to humiliate me. I never meant... You meant every bit of it. You and Derek laughed about me, called me pathetic. Planned to take half of everything I've worked for while you were with him using my money." I paused, letting that sink in. "And so, no, I don't want your money or your apologies. I want you to live with the consequences of your choices, both of you." I hung up and went back to work. Tuesday afternoon, I was replacing a broken window at the Hendersons' house when Doug Peterson pulled into their driveway. He looked agitated, which was unusual for a man who'd spent 3 decades dealing with drunk tourists and domestic disputes. "Ethan, we need to talk." I set down my tools and followed him to his pickup truck, out of earshot from the house. "I just had coffee with Tom Bradley and Steve Morrison," Doug said. "They're pissed at you." Tom and Steve had been friends of mine for years. We played poker twice a month, went fishing occasionally, shared beers at the Anchor. They were also Vanessa's friends, or had been. What's their problem? They think you're being vindictive, going too far with this divorce thing. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Going too far, how? Tom says Vanessa called his wife, crying, said you're trying to destroy her life over a simple mistake. Steve thinks you should have handled this privately, worked it out like adults. A simple mistake? Their words, not mine. Doug held up his hands. I told them they were full of shit, but they're not listening. They think you're being cruel. Cruel. I tasted the word. Did they see the emails, the hotel receipts, the 4 months of lies? I tried to tell them, but they've made up their minds. Tom said affairs happen, people work through them. He thinks you're being vindictive because you're embarrassed. I stared at Doug's truck for a long moment, processing this information. Tom Bradley was an insurance salesman who'd been married to the same woman for 22 years. Steve Morrison owned a small construction company and coached Little League baseball. They were good men, decent men, the kind of people who believed in second chances and working things out. They were also idiots. When did you talk to them? This morning. They want to meet with you tonight, try to talk some sense into you. Talk some sense into me. That's what they said. I picked up my tools and went back to work on the Hendersons' window. Doug stood there for a few minutes, then drove away without another word. That evening, I met Tom and Steve at the Crooked Anchor. They were already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, looking like they were planning an intervention. Ethan, Tom stood up as I approached. Thanks for coming. I sat down across from them and ordered a beer. Doug says you think I'm being unreasonable. Steve leaned forward. Look, man, we get it. You're hurt. Vanessa screwed up big time, but destroying her career, getting her fired, that's not like you. What's like me? You're a good guy, Tom said. You always have been. Good guys don't go nuclear over a marriage problem. A marriage problem? I set down my beer carefully. Is that what we're calling adultery now? Affairs happen, Steve said. My cousin went through the same thing 5 years ago. He and his wife worked it out, went to counseling. They're stronger now than they ever were. Your cousin's wife didn't spend 4 months planning to divorce him and take half his assets while she was involved with her boss. Tom winced. You don't have to be crude about it. Crude? You want to see crude? I pulled out my phone and showed them one of Derek's more explicit emails. This is your boy Derek describing what he wants to do to my wife, in detail, while she's still married to me. Both men looked uncomfortable, but they didn't back down. Okay, so the guy's a pig, Steve said. That doesn't mean you have to destroy Vanessa's life. I didn't destroy anything. I reported workplace misconduct to HR. What they do about it is their business. Come on, Ethan. You knew exactly what would happen. I hoped exactly what would happen. Tom shook his head. This isn't you, man. You're angry and you're not thinking straight. Vanessa made a mistake. Stop calling it a mistake. My voice was louder than I'd intended, and several people at the bar turned to look. A mistake is forgetting to pay the electric bill or leaving the milk out overnight. This was a calculated betrayal that lasted 4 months. She planned it, executed it, and covered it up. She used our money to pay for hotel rooms where she was with another man. She mocked me in emails to her boyfriend. She planned to divorce me and take half of everything while she was screwing him behind my back. I stood up, suddenly too angry to sit still. So don't you dare call it a mistake, and don't you dare tell me I'm being unreasonable for refusing to be a victim. Steve held up his hands. Okay, we get it. You're pissed, but think about this rationally. Vanessa's career is over. She'll never work in marketing again, not in Maine. Is that really what you want? Yes. The word came out flat and final. Both men stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Jesus, Ethan, Tom said. What happened to you? I woke up. I realized that being a good guy doesn't mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean letting people walk all over you while you smile and pretend everything's fine. So, you're going to ruin her life? I'm going to let her live with the consequences of her choices. There's a difference. I threw a $10 bill on the table and headed for the door. Ethan, wait. Steve caught up with me in the parking lot. Look, we're your friends. We're trying to help. Are you? Because it sounds like you're trying to help Vanessa. We're trying to help both of you. This scorched earth thing you're doing, it's not going to make you feel better. It's just going to make you bitter. I stopped walking and turned to face him. Steve Morrison was a good man. He employed 12 people, paid his taxes, volunteered at the fire department. He was also completely missing the point. Steve, let me ask you something. If you found out that Linda was involved with her boss, using your credit cards to pay for hotel rooms, and planning to divorce you and take half your business, what would you do? Steve was quiet for a long moment. I'd be devastated. And then what? I'd try to work it out, go to counseling, save the marriage. Even if she wasn't sorry, even if she was only upset because she got caught. I'd try. I nodded. That's the difference between us, Steve. You'd try to save something that was already gone. I'd rather bury it and move on. I got in my truck and drove home, leaving my 2 oldest friends standing in the parking lot. When I got home, there were 3 voicemails on my answering machine, all from mutual friends, all expressing concern about my behavior. Apparently, Vanessa had been busy. I deleted the messages and went to my workshop. I had planning to do. Wednesday morning brought news from Lila. Her friend Sarah had forwarded the documentation to Coastal Marketing's corporate headquarters in Boston, along with a formal complaint about workplace harassment and misuse of company resources. They're taking it seriously, Lila told me over the phone. Sarah says this kind of thing can destroy a company's reputation if it gets out. They're going to conduct a full investigation. What does that mean? It means Derek and Vanessa are probably finished. Even if they don't get fired, they'll never work in marketing again. Not in New England. I should have felt satisfied, but something was still bothering me. Tom and Steve's words kept echoing in my head. This isn't you, man. Good guys don't go nuclear. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Then I checked my email and found a message from Derek Harlan. Ethan, it read, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'd like to meet with you, man to man, and clear the air. There are things about this situation you don't understand. Vanessa and I never meant for anyone to get hurt. Can we meet for coffee? I think we can work something out that benefits everyone. I stared at the message for a long time. Derek wanted to meet, to work something out. The arrogance was breathtaking. I typed back, Pier 19, Marina. Tonight at 8 p.m., come alone. Pier 19 was at the end of Millbrook's waterfront district, a quiet spot where locals went to fish and watch the sunset. It would be private enough for conversation, public enough to avoid trouble. Derek was waiting when I arrived, leaning against his BMW like he was posing for a car commercial. He dressed down for the occasion, khakis and a polo shirt instead of his usual suit, but he still looked like what he was, a rich man pretending to be humble. Ethan. He extended his hand. Thanks for coming. I ignored the handshake. What do you want, Derek? I want to apologize. What happened between Vanessa and me? It got out of hand. We never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? Derek shifted uncomfortably. Look, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But destroying our careers isn't going to fix your marriage. My marriage is over. You made sure of that. It doesn't have to be. Vanessa loves you, Ethan. She made a mistake, but she wants to work things out. I almost laughed. Is that what she told you? That she loves me? She's confused right now. The affair, it was just physical. It didn't mean anything. Really? Because the emails I read suggested otherwise. All those plans for your future together, the house you picked out, the 5-year plan, that seemed pretty meaningful. Derek's confident expression flickered. You read our emails? I read everything. Every message, every plan, every time you called me a pathetic loser who wouldn't fight back. I never said... You said exactly that. October 15th, 2:47 p.m. Your husband's a pathetic loser. Can't wait until you're free of him. Ring a bell? Derek was quiet for a moment, probably trying to remember what else he'd written. Okay, he said finally. I said some things I shouldn't have. I was caught up in the moment. But that doesn't mean we can't move past this. Move past it how? Vanessa and I will end things. Clean break. She'll come home, you'll go to counseling. Everyone moves on with their lives. And you? I'll transfer to our Boston office. New start for everyone. I studied Derek's face in the fading light. He was serious. He actually thought he could negotiate his way out of this mess. What about the HR investigation? That's why I wanted to talk to you. If you call them tomorrow and say you overreacted, that you've worked things out privately, they'll drop the whole thing. Companies hate this kind of publicity. They'd rather sweep it under the rug. And in return? In return, everyone gets to keep their career and their dignity. Vanessa keeps her job, I keep mine, you get your wife back. Win-win-win. Derek smiled. The same smile he probably used in sales presentations. Confident, persuasive, completely hollow. You're forgetting something, I said. What's that? I don't want her back. Derek's smile faltered. What? I don't want Vanessa back. I don't want to go to counseling. I don't want to pretend this never happened. I want both of you to live with the consequences of what you did. Ethan, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. You were involved with my wife, mocked me in emails, and planned to help her take half my assets in a divorce. Now you want me to help you cover it up so you can keep your jobs and your reputations? That's not reasonable. That's insane. Derek's mask of humility finally slipped. Fine. You want to play hardball? Let's play hardball. Meaning I've got lawyers too. Good ones, expensive ones. You think you can destroy my career over a few emails? I'll bury you in litigation, invasion of privacy, illegal surveillance, harassment. I'll own your house by the time I'm done with you. I nodded slowly. There it is. The real Derek Harlan. Took you longer than I expected to drop the nice guy act. I tried to be reasonable. You tried to manipulate me, just like you manipulated Vanessa. But here's the thing, Derek. I'm not one of your employees. I don't work for you. I don't need anything from you, and I sure as hell don't respect you. Derek stepped closer, trying to use his height advantage to intimidate me. You're making a big mistake, Ethan. The only mistake I made was trusting my wife. But I won't make that mistake again. You self-righteous prick. You think you're some kind of hero? You're just a bitter loser who can't handle the fact that his wife found someone better. Better? I laughed. You're a middle-aged, divorced guy who preys on his employees. You drive a car you can't afford, live in a house that's mortgaged to the hilt, and your own kids won't talk to you. If that's better, I'll stick with being a loser. Derek's face went red. How do you know about my kids? I know lots of things, Derek. I know you're 3 months behind on your BMW payments. I know your ex-wife took half your assets and most of your retirement in the divorce. I know you've been sleeping with subordinates for years, and HR has gotten complaints before. Want me to keep going? Derek swung at me then, a wild right hook that telegraphed itself from a mile away. I stepped aside and let him stumble past me, off balance and embarrassed. Careful, Derek. Assault charges would look bad on your resume. He straightened up, breathing hard. This isn't over. Yes, it is. It's been over since the moment you decided to be involved with my wife. You just didn't know it yet. Derek got in his BMW and drove away, tires squealing on the wet pavement. I stood on the pier for a few more minutes, watching the lights of the boats in the harbor, then went home to wait for the final act. It didn't take long. Thursday morning, I got a call from Janet Morrison at Coastal Marketing. Mr. Ford, I wanted to update you on our investigation. We've completed our review of the evidence you provided. And? Both employees have been terminated, effective immediately. Mr. Harlan's conduct violated multiple company policies, and Ms. Ford's participation in the relationship created a clear conflict of interest. What about the financial irregularities? We're still reviewing those, but it appears that company resources were misused on several occasions. We may be pursuing criminal charges. Criminal charges. I hadn't expected that. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Mr. Ford. This kind of behavior is completely unacceptable. I hung up and called Lila to give her the news. It's over, I told her. They're both fired. How do you feel? I thought about that for a moment. Tired, but satisfied. Any regrets? Just one. I should have done this sooner. That evening, Vanessa showed up at my door. She looked terrible. Red eyes, unwashed hair, clothes that had been slept in. The confident, polished woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone desperate and defeated. Can I come in? She asked. No. Ethan, please, we need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. They fired me. They fired Derek. We're both unemployed. I know. You destroyed our lives. You destroyed your own lives. I just documented it. Vanessa started crying then, the ugly kind of crying that comes from genuine despair. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I love you, Ethan. I've always loved you. No, you haven't. You loved the security I provided. You loved having someone to pay the bills while you played house with your boss. That's not true. It's completely true. You said so yourself in the emails. You called me boring, predictable, a safety net. You said Derek made you feel alive in ways I never could. Vanessa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I was confused. I didn't mean those things. You meant every word, and you know what? You were right. I was boring. I was predictable. I was a safety net. But I was also faithful, honest, and committed to our marriage. Apparently those things don't count for much. They do count. They count for everything. I was stupid, Ethan. I threw away the best thing in my life for nothing. You threw it away for Derek Harlan, who, by the way, has been telling everyone who'll listen that you seduced him, that you were the aggressor in the relationship. Very gallant of him. Vanessa's face went white. He said that? He's trying to save what's left of his reputation. Apparently loyalty isn't his strong suit. She stood there for a long moment, processing this final betrayal. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now you live with the consequences of your choices. You find a new job, a new place to live, a new life, just like you planned to do anyway. I don't have anywhere to go. That's not my problem anymore. I started to close the door, then paused. Vanessa, for what it's worth, I did love you. For 15 years, I loved you completely. But that man is gone. You killed him with your lies and your betrayal. What's left is someone who learned not to be a victim. I closed the door and locked it, leaving my former wife standing on the porch in the rain. The next morning, I found out she'd left town. Mrs. Carmody saw her loading boxes into her Honda at dawn, then driving away toward the highway. She didn't leave a forwarding address. Derek lasted another week before he left too, probably to start over somewhere his reputation hadn't preceded him. I kept working, kept living, kept moving forward. The house felt different without Vanessa, quieter, but also cleaner somehow. I rearranged the furniture, painted the walls, made it mine. Tom and Steve never spoke to me again. They thought I'd gone too far, become someone they didn't recognize. Maybe they were right. Maybe I had changed. But as I sat in my workshop that Friday night, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects, I realized I didn't care what they thought. I'd spent too many years being the nice guy, the understanding husband, the man who never fought back. Those days were over. I raised a beer to the empty workshop and smiled. Sometimes, I said to no one in particular, the underdog bites back, and when he does, he doesn't let go.